Actually, my talk for today has slightly changed. It's about how long do arranged marriages last and answers from a Roma community in South Transylvania. I hope nobody will be disappointed by this change. It was actually sparked by a new debate in Romania, which was triggered by a new bill which was proposed to the Romanian parliament to ban forced marriages and forced cohabitation. Oh, it's very strange here because the light comes. So the debate started with the proposal of this bill, which was made by representatives of the parliament in collaboration with NGOs. And there were the representatives of the Roma communities, of the so-called traditional conservative Roma communities who opposed the bill. They basically organized protests across the country. They came to Bucharest at the parliament to carry out debates. And basically there still are, because the debate is going on, two camps. On the one hand, there are the people who proposed the bill, basically are proponents of the human and women rights discourse, which is kind of a universalist discourse, right? Targeted at the protection of minors. They basically want to incriminate and criminalize people who organized marriages and engagements, betrothals, for people under 16 years old, which is in Romania the age at which, under certain circumstances, a marriage can be concluded if before the legal marriage of age of marriage of 18. And basically, they define forced marriage as an union concluded without the full and free consent of both spouses, often involving manipulation, threats, physical violence, or a market transaction, thus constituting a violation of human rights. And publicly, the law's proponents have emphasized that the primary victims of such practices are girls and women. And on the other side of the debate, we have the proponents of the so-called tradition and a very essentialized concept of culture, which is rooted in a discourse that is underpinned by ideas of backwardness and things that come from the past, like customs and practices that come from the past. Well, as an anthropologist who has been working with a group of Roma in South Transylvania, which is in central Romania, who arranged the marriages of their children and grandchildren. So I've been working there for more than 2 decades. I wish to contribute to this debate, not by taking sides, but somehow showing ways of bridging the arguments on the two camps. So I'm speaking as a non-Roma. I should say from the very beginning that I am a non-Roma who got the insights of the anthropologist, who learned the language and became very close to one family in the community that I studied. like, my claims are based on their own view of practices related to arranged marriages. So what the arguments that I'm making, what I want to claim today, is that actually there is not a great divide between tradition and modernity. Because when we speak about arranged marriages, and there was also like a sociologist who in the Romanian media recently commented saying that, I want to quote him, but where is he? Saying one cannot continue today by means of and traditions specific to the Middle Ages. So somehow Romani traditions and arranging marriages are equated with backwardness and tradition, and love matches and courtships and are kind of ideologies of modernity. Based on my fieldwork, I want to claim that there is a false boundary between tradition and modernity, that most of the time paternal authority and romance intermingle, and the alliances, the marital alliances, cannot be conceived as solely as intimate relationships. They are like an interplay between economic, kinship, and politics, and also that the boundary between marriage and betrothal is very fluid. Because, and I want to stress this because the proponents of traditional Roma culture made the claim that betrothal should not be incriminated because they usually do not result in intimate relationships between the spouses. So I will ground my claims in the ethnography with these people from South Transylvania, who are called by the outsiders cortorari, which would directly translate as tent dwellers, as a reminder of their past itinerant lifestyle, and who call themselves in their own language Ame el Roma, which would broadly translate as a community of married people. And somehow marriage, or I use this broad term, but I will explain that they don't have the term in their own language, is at the heart of the definition of individual persons and of the definition of their community. Their community ends where marriageable persons ends, and once one becomes a fully woman, or like a full woman or a full man, once she married and conceived. And I'm asking if cortorar arranged marriages can be equated with tradition. Are they a thing from the past? And actually, the answer is no. So what I've basically witnessed in the community lately is that a raise of cash dowry, which is based on capital coming from international migration, which was made possible only during post-socialism. Then the resort to sex-selective abortion, which is, again, like very new. I mean, only at the beginning of 2000s, did cortorar had access to 3D scans pregnancies to see the sex of the fetuses. And I did not mention that they are like a patriarchal community who place more symbolical value on men than on women. So they don't want girls, because you need a big cash dowry to marry out your girl. Thus, they resort to sex-selective abortion. They also resorted to biomedical transformations of bodies lately. That is because own conceptions of gender are grounded in procreative capacities. They try to enhance bodies to be able to procreate at an earlier age. Then there is the global lowering age of puberty, and the joint effects of all these factors is the lowering age of marriage. Thus, to have like the arrangement of marriages at a very early age is, I showed that is not something that comes from the past. Interestingly enough, it's a product of modernity. I don't know why I cannot change the slide. Sorry. So I was saying at the very beginning that cortorari do not have a word for marriage in their own language. They usually take and give daughters, and in so doing, the two parties bind themselves. So marriage is not a yes or no proposition between two individuals. It is an alliance between two extended families. And the word that they use for marriage, for what we understand through marriage, is tocmeala, which those of you who know Romanian would easily associate with the marketplace, with the market transaction. Tocmeala basically means in Romanian to haggle over a price, to negotiate, which is exactly what cortorari do when they arrange the marriages of their kids. So rather than being, about intimate relationships between two people, two individuals, these arrangements are, like in anthropology, we call it a fait social total from Moss. It's something that necessarily involve an economic transaction, but beyond the material, the goods and money exchange, it's actually about the economic cooperation of the two families involved in the transaction, in the ceremonial exchange. So cortorari start arranging the marriages of their sons and grandsons and daughters, even since they are like still in their mother's wombs, because now they can see the sex of the fetuses, so they start arranging these engagements, let's call them, and marriage is actually, and why they do this, because cortorari have always stayed outside wage labor relationships. It's like their economy is based on kinship. And for economic ventures, you need to cooperate with your in-laws. So when they start arranging the marriages, it's not that these marriages will necessarily involve an intimate relationship between the two kids. It's just that the mature persons, the adults, will cooperate in economic ventures. And marriage is a very long process, which starts, as I said, since kids are in their mother's homes and only end up when the daughter, the bride, moves in the groom's house, whom he shares with his parents, and a marriage is secured only when the couple has a son. To secure the marriage. And this is a very, very long process. I won't speak about the chalice because this will take too much time. But I will tell you an ethnographic story, which I hope will convince you of the claims I'm making here. So when I was still conducting my PhD fieldwork, Vlad, 15 years old, was matched with Lina, who was 3 years old, his senior. The ceremonial exchange was negotiated between Vlad's parents on one side and Lina's parents together with her maternal uncle's family on the other. It gets a bit technical. The arrangement followed the pattern of reciprocal exchange. Vlad's sister, Maria, became the bride of Lina's cousin. Just a second, I want to show you. Sorry about this. So, Cortorar preferred to conclude this kind of union where, like a family with the boy and the son, exchange the daughters with a family with a similar composition. Believing that such arrangements prevent the dissolution of both marriages and ensure equitable treatment of the two brides within their respective families. So, because Cortorari don't show in public affection or courtship, or it was very difficult for me to assess the depth of Vlad's feeling for Lina. Anyway, Lina, at the end of my fieldwork, Lina had a very early miscarriage. And on that occasion, I could see how Vlad partook in her grief, how he held her hands sitting by her bed in the hospital. It was even, what I want to say is that even if it was an arranged match, affective bonds gradually grew between the spouses. And while somehow parents were much more interested in the materialistic side of this exchange, of this marital union, Vlad and Lina, they actually cared about each other. And it's somehow very difficult, to policy the boundary between arrangement and love. And just to give you another example with Vlad's sister, Maria, had previously been matched to someone she disliked and to whose family she could not adjust. She first attempted the tricks other brides employ when seeking release from an undesired match, being deliberately clumsy in cooking, adding the eggshells in the omelets, and similar acts of domestic sabotage. While trying to annoy her parents-in-law to the point of sending her back home, she was caught furtively dating her next prospective match. Both because she had dragged her family's reputation through the mud and because she desperately wanted to escape her first match, she swallowed a handful of pills and ended up hospitalized. She eventually managed to convince her parents to arrange a new match for her. And Vlad had to serve as the complementary pair in the exchange, given that Maria's future in-laws had a daughter in the family who needed to marry. Maria's story showcases agency and resistance within arranged marriages, albeit a different model of agency than liberal individualism recognizes, and complicates the gendered victimhood narrative. I mean, in public debates, now that the bill was proposed, it was basically that the proponents of the bills made recourse to the rights of women. It is that women exclusively women are victims. I mean, at least in this case, in Vlad's story, Vlad was pawned in the exchange, and it was much more of a victim than his own sister. So the forced free binary obscures the actual dynamics of negotiation, resistance, and constraint choice that everyone navigates within the community. And I hope that somehow these stories illustrates how economic calculation, political negotiations, and emerging effective bonds cannot be disentangled. They constitute a single social process. And it is also when, the bill discuss forced marriages in terms of the lack of consent. I wonder what kind of consent or what kind of a choice make individuals, people who live in this kind of sociocentric societies where relationships come first, come before the person. I mean, with his next match, because eventually Lina died in a future miscarriage, like very late miscarriage. She died of septicemia. And she was again pawned in a marriage in which he himself, I mean, he was already 19 years old, he had a say in the match. He wanted to safeguard the marriage of his sister. So, and later on, I saw him like growing very fond of his spouse. The universalist human rights discourse, while indispensable for protecting minors from abuse, tends to flatten these local words of meaning, mistaking relational duties for forms of domination. Dismissing these practices as medieval or backward does little to protect those most affected. It only deepens the gulf between state law and local moral words. What is needed instead is a more dialogical approach, one that acknowledges how love, duty, and negotiation coexist within these alliances, and how the pursuit of justice must begin from, rather than against, the lived realities of those whose lives it seeks to transform. So I wouldn't, have an answer to the debate, but I think it's much more complicated on the ground than in the public discourse when we term this kind of alliances as backward and forced. And yeah, we have camps that believe that this is a kind of a backward old practice, and others who want to reform it. Thank you very much for your attention.